Love is the most powerful force in the universe, and yet, how often do we block its flow with the heavy stones of unforgiveness? I stand before you today not as someone who has mastered this art, but as a fellow traveler on this remarkable journey we call life. A journey that has taught me that the deepest wounds can become our greatest teachers, and that forgiveness isn't just a gift we give to others. It's the key that unlocks our own prison of pain. I recently sat by my window during a thunderstorm, watching raindrops trace paths down the glass. Each droplet seemed to carry its own burden, its own weight, until it finally merged with others and flowed away. It struck me then, this is exactly what we do with our hurts and resentments. We hold on to them, letting them weigh us down, never realizing that we have the power to let them flow away, to transform them into something beautiful. Think about it for a moment. What are you carrying right now? What wounds have you turned into walls? Who lives rent-free in your mind, occupying space that could be filled with joy, creativity, and love? These aren't just rhetorical questions. They're invitations to look deeper into ourselves, to examine the weight we've been carrying, perhaps for years, without even realizing it. I remember working with a man, let's call him a friend, who carried anger towards his father for 30 years. 30 years of missed opportunities for connection. 30 years of letting one person's actions determine his emotional weather forecast. When he finally understood that forgiveness wasn't about condoning what happened, but about freeing himself, everything changed. I feel like I've been carrying a boulder on my shoulders for decades, he told me, and suddenly I've discovered I can put it down. But here's what most people get wrong about forgiveness. They think it's something you do for the other person. They wait for an apology, for some cosmic scale to balance before they're willing to let go. But that's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. It's about your freedom, your peace, your ability to move forward without the heavy chains of resentment holding you back. You see, when we hold on to hurt, we're not just holding on to a memory. We're continuously recreating that pain in the present moment. Every time we replay that argument, every time we rehearse what we should have said, every time we fuel that anger with new thoughts, we're not punishing the other person, we're punishing ourselves. We're choosing to live in a prison of our own making, and we're the ones holding the key. The truth is, forgiveness is not a single act. It's a practice, a way of being in the world. It's choosing again and again to release the grip of resentment and open ourselves to the possibility of peace. It's understanding that people can only meet us at the level of consciousness they currently possess. When someone hurts us, they're operating from their own level of pain, their own limitations, their own unresolved wounds. I've spent years studying the effects of forgiveness on our physical and emotional well-being. And the research is clear. Unforgiveness is like carrying a backpack full of rocks up a mountain. It exhausts us. It compromises our immune system. It raises our blood pressure. It keeps us stuck in fight or flight mode. But here's the beautiful thing. The moment we choose forgiveness, we begin to heal. Not just emotionally, but physically too. Think about your own life for a moment. How many beautiful moments have been overshadowed by the dark clouds of resentment? How many relationships have been poisoned not by the original hurt, but by our inability to let it go? How much of your precious life force is being drained by maintaining these walls of protection that have become your prison? You might be thinking, but you don't know what they did to me. And you're right, your pain is valid. Your hurt is real. But holding on to it isn't protecting you, it's prolonging your suffering. As the saying goes, holding on to anger is like holding on to a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You're the one getting burned. Let me share something profound with you. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to reconcile with someone who has hurt you deeply. It doesn't mean you have to trust them again or allow them back into your life. Forgiveness is about you choosing to release the emotional charge that person or situation has over your life. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of past pain. I've worked with people who have faced unimaginable betrayals, devastating losses, and profound injustices. And time again, I've witnessed the same truth. Those who find the courage to forgive don't do it because what happened. They do it because they decide that peace is more important than being right. They do it because they understand that resentment is like a bridge you burn on the path to your own happiness. The process of forgiveness begins with a simple but powerful choice. The choice to see yourself as more than your hurts. To recognize that you are not your wounds, not your past, not the sum total of what has happened to you. You are the awareness that witnesses all of these experiences, and you are the consciousness that can choose in any moment to begin again. Consider this, every cell in your body is constantly renewing itself. Your skin completely regenerates every 27 days, your liver every 6 weeks, your skeleton every 3 months. Nature is showing us that renewal is the way of life. So why do we insist on holding on to old hurts, old stories, old pain? Why do we allow past wounds to define our present moment? The most powerful realization about forgiveness is that it's not something that happens to you. It's something that happens through you. It's a conscious choice you make, moment by moment, to release yourself from the bondage of bitterness. And here's the beautiful paradox. The very act of forgiving changes not just your future, but your past as well. It transforms the meaning of what happened to you into something that happened for you. Let me share something profound with you about the nature of forgiveness that changed my entire perspective. When we're hurt, our natural response is to contract, to protect ourselves, to build walls. But walls don't just keep pain out. They keep love out too. They keep life out. They keep growth out. Every time we choose unforgiveness, we're essentially saying to the universe, I choose to remain small. I choose to remain hurt. I choose to let this wound define me. But what if, and this is where it gets really interesting, what if every person who has hurt you was actually sent to help you grow? What if they were cosmic teaching assistants in the great classroom of life? Now, I'm not suggesting that what they did was right or that you should thank them for hurting you. What I am suggesting is that you have the power to transform that hurt into wisdom, that pain into purpose, that wound into a source of healing for. You see, forgiveness operates on a completely different frequency than the hurt that caused it. It's like trying to fight darkness with darkness. It simply doesn't work. The only thing that can transform darkness is light. The only thing that can transform hurt is love. And forgiveness is nothing but love. Think about water for a moment. When water meets an obstacle, it doesn't stop flowing. It doesn't get angry at the rock in its path. It simply finds another way around. It adapts, it flows, it continues its journey. Water teaches us that the path of least resistance is often the path of greatest power. Forgiveness is your way of being like water, flowing around the obstacles of hurt and pain, continuing your journey toward who you're meant to become. But here's where many people get stuck. They think forgiveness means forgetting. They think it means pretending the hurt never happened. Nothing could be further from the truth. Real forgiveness is about seeing what happened with absolute clarity and choosing to release it anyway. It's about understanding that holding on to resentment is like letting someone who hurt you in the past continue to hurt you in the present. I've worked with countless individuals who discovered that their unwillingness to forgive wasn't protecting them. It was poisoning them. Their resentment had become a lens through which they viewed all their relationships, all their experiences. They were so afraid of being hurt again that they had built fortress walls around their hearts. But fortress walls don't just keep pain out, they keep love out too. The capacity to forgive is directly proportional to your capacity for joy, love, and abundance. When you hold on to hurt, you're essentially telling the universe, this is what I want more of in my life: pain, resentment, and separation. Because what you focus on expands. What you resist persists. What you fight, but when you choose forgiveness, you're declaring to the universe, I am ready for healing. I am ready for peace. I am ready for love. And the universe responds in kind. It's like opening windows in a stuffy room. Suddenly, fresh air can flow in. New possibilities can emerge. New connections can form. Consider this: every moment of unforgiveness is a moment where you're choosing your past over your present. Every moment of holding on to hurt is a moment where you're choosing what happened over what could be. Every moment of resentment is a moment where you're giving your power away to someone who may not even know they still have it. The journey of forgiveness often begins with forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself for staying too long in situations that didn't serve you. Forgiving yourself for not knowing what you know now. Forgiving yourself for the choices you made when you are operating from a place of fear rather than love. Because until you can extend compassion to yourself, it's very difficult to extend it to others. Think about this. How many times have you replayed painful scenarios in your mind? How many times have you had imaginary conversations with people who hurt you? How many times have you allowed past wounds to dictate your present choices? Each of these moments is an opportunity to choose differently, to choose freedom, to choose forgiveness. But forgiveness isn't just about releasing the big hurts. It's about developing a forgiving heart in your daily life. It's about releasing the small irritations, the minor betrayals, the everyday disappointments that can accumulate like plaque on your emotional arteries. Because if you can't forgive the small things, how will you ever find the strength to forgive the big ones? I want you to try something with me right now. Close your eyes for a moment and think of someone who has hurt you. Feel the weight of that hurt in your body. Notice where you carry it. In your shoulders, your chest, your stomach. Now imagine that this hurt is like a heavy backpack you've been carrying. Feel its weight. Feel how it's been affecting your posture, your energy, your ability to move freely through life. Now imagine slowly taking off that backpack. You're not throwing it away. You're simply setting it down. Feel the immediate relief in your body. Feel the lightness that comes with releasing that weight. That's what forgiveness feels like. It's not about forgetting the backpack exists. It's about choosing not to carry it anymore. You might be thinking, but what about justice? What about consequences? And these are valid questions, but here's the truth. Your forgiveness and their accountability are two separate things. You can release your emotional attachment to the hurt while still maintaining healthy boundaries. You can free yourself from the prison of resentment while still choosing not to have that person in your life. Let me share something profound with you about the relationship between forgiveness and personal power. Many people believe that holding on to anger makes them strong, that refusing to forgive somehow protects them from future hurt. But true power lies in your ability to remain soft in a world that constantly tries to harden you. True strength is found not in building walls, but in maintaining an open heart even after it's been broken. Think of forgiveness as an act of spiritual alchemy. It's the process of transforming the lead of resentment into the gold of wisdom. Every time you choose forgiveness, you're not just releasing something, you're creating space for something new. You're literally reconstructing your future by changing how you hold your past. I've observed something remarkable in my years of working with people on the path of forgiveness. Those who master this art don't just experience better relationships with others. They develop a completely different relationship with life itself. They stop seeing themselves as victims of circumstance and start recognizing themselves as creators of their experience. They understand that while they can't always control what happens to them, they have absolute control over how they respond. Holding on to resentment is a form of self-importance. When we refuse to forgive, we're essentially saying, my hurt is more important than my healing. My pain is more significant than my peace. We're choosing to define ourselves by what happened to us rather than by what's possible for us. But what if you could see every person who has hurt you as a teacher? What if every betrayal, every disappointment, every heartbreak was actually a lesson in disguise? Not because what they did was right, but because your response to it has the power to transform you. Your wounds can become windows through which you see life more clearly, love more deeply, live more fully. Consider the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The philosophy behind this art form is that breakage and repair are part of the history of an object, not something to disguise or hide. In the same way, your emotional wounds, when healed through forgiveness, can become the golden seams that make you more beautiful, more valuable, more whole. The process of forgiveness often unfolds in layers, like peeling an onion. Just when you think you've forgiven someone completely, life presents you with another opportunity to go deeper. This isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of growth. Each layer you peel away brings you closer to your authentic self, the self that exists beneath all the hurt and protection. But here's what's really fascinating about forgiveness. It operates on a quantum level. When you truly forgive someone, you're not just changing your relationship with them, you're changing your relationship with everyone. You're not just healing one wound, you're healing your capacity to be wounded. You're developing emotional immunity, not by becoming harder, but by becoming more resilient. Think about this. Every time you choose not to forgive, you're essentially choosing to relive the hurt. You're choosing to give that person or situation power over your present moment. You're choosing to let your past dictate your future. Is that really what you want? Is that really who you want to be? The most powerful form of forgiveness is what I call preemptive forgiveness. It's the ability to move through life with such openness and understanding that you don't accumulate new hurts. You develop the capacity to process pain in real time, to understand that other people's actions are about them, not you. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. Quite the opposite. You become so secure in your own worth that you don't need others to validate it. Let me share something profound about the relationship between forgiveness and manifestation. When you're holding on to old hurts, you're literally blocking the flow of good in your life. It's like trying to receive new gifts with hands full of old grit. You have to let go to let in. You have to empty your cup to fill it with something new. I've witnessed people transform their entire lives through the practice of forgiveness. Chronic health conditions that didn't respond to medical treatment suddenly began to heal. Relationships that seemed beyond repair started to mend. Opportunities that had been elusive suddenly appeared. Not because forgiveness is magic, but because unforgiveness is a block to the natural flow of life. Here's a powerful truth about forgiveness and relationships. The way you hold your past hurts directly affects your capacity for intimacy in the present. If you're carrying unresolved pain from previous relationships, you're not really showing up fully in your current ones. You're relating to your past experiences rather than to the person in front of you. Think about how many times you've held back from fully loving because you were afraid of being hurt again. How many times have you put conditions on your love because you were trying to protect yourself? How many walls have you built that are actually keeping love out rather than keeping pain away? The most profound shift happens when you realize that forgiveness isn't something you do. It's something you become. It's not an action you take. It's a state of being you cultivate. When you truly understand this, you stop waiting for the right moment to forgive. You stop waiting for an apology. You stop waiting for justice. You simply choose peace again and again, moment by moment. But here's what's really fascinating. When you become a forgiving person, you actually experience fewer situations that require forgiveness. It's as if the universe stops sending you those lessons because you've already learned them. You develop what I call emotional immunity. Not because you can't be hurt, but because you know how to process hurt in a way that doesn't leave lasting damage. Let's talk about something that few people understand about forgiveness. Its relationship with personal boundaries. Many people resist forgiveness because they think it means becoming vulnerable to further hurt. But true forgiveness actually strengthens your boundaries. When you're no longer operating from a place of hurt and fear, you can set boundaries from a place of clarity and self-respect. Think about this. When you're holding on to hurt, you're actually more likely to attract similar situations into your life. It's as if you're broadcasting on the frequency of pain, and the universe responds in kind. But when you forgive, you change your frequency. You start broadcasting on the wavelength of peace, and suddenly your experiences begin to match that vibration. I've noticed something remarkable in people who have mastered forgiveness. They have an almost magnetic quality about them. People are drawn to their presence not because they're perfect, but because they're real. They've learned how to hold both light and shadow, both joy and pain, with equal grace. They understand that forgiveness isn't about erasing the darkness. It's about bringing more light to it. Here's a profound truth about forgiveness and time. The past only exists in your mind. The future only exists in your imagination. The only moment you can actually experience is now. So when you choose not to forgive, you're choosing to recreate past pain in your present moment. You're choosing to carry yesterday's burden into today's opportunities. Consider this: every moment of unforgiveness is a moment where you're giving your power away. Every moment of resentment is a moment where you're choosing to be a victim rather than a creator. Every moment of holding on to hurt is a moment where you're letting someone else's actions determine your emotional state. But what if you could see that the person who hurt you was acting from their own level of consciousness at the time? What if you could understand that their actions were a reflection of their inner state, not your worth? This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps you stop taking it personally. It helps you see that their actions say more about them than about you. The most powerful form of forgiveness happens when you can look at someone who hurt you and silently thank them for the lessons they brought into your life. Not because what they did was right, but because your response to it made you stronger, wiser, more compassionate. When you can do this, you've truly mastered the art of transformation. Let me share something about the relationship between forgiveness and success. Unforgiveness is like driving through life with your emotional parking brake on. You might still move forward, but you're using so much more energy than necessary. You're creating resistance where there doesn't need to be any. When you forgive, you release that brake. Suddenly, the same amount of effort yields much greater results. I've witnessed people transform their careers through the practice of forgiveness. When they released old resentments toward previous employers or colleagues, new opportunities started flowing. When they forgave themselves for past failures, they found the courage to take new risks. When they let go of old stories about not being good enough, they started attracting experiences that matched their true worth. But here's what's fascinating about forgiveness and success. It's not just about what you achieve, it's about who you become in the process. When you practice forgiveness, you develop emotional intelligence, resilience, and wisdom that no amount of external success can provide. You learn to navigate life's challenges with grace rather than resistance. Think about how much mental and emotional energy you spend holding on to hurt. That energy could be directed toward your dreams, your goals, your growth. Every moment you spend rehearsing old pain is a moment you could be creating something new. Every ounce of energy you use maintaining walls of resentment could be used building bridges to new possibilities. The practice of forgiveness also has a profound impact on your creativity. When you're holding on to hurt, you're operating from a place of contraction. Your energy is focused on protection rather than expression. But when you forgive, you open up channels of creativity you didn't even know existed. You access parts of yourself that were blocked by old pain. Consider this: every act of creation is an act of forgiveness. You're forgiving the blank canvas for being empty. You're forgiving yourself for not being perfect. You're forgiving the process for taking longer than you'd like. When you understand this, creativity becomes not just something you do, but a way of being in the world. Let me share something profound about forgiveness and relationships. The level of intimacy you can experience with others is directly proportional to your capacity for self-forgiveness. If you can't forgive yourself for your mistakes, your imperfections, your humanity, you'll never be able to fully accept these things in others. Your relationships will always be limited by your own internal judgments. The most beautiful relationships I've witnessed are between people who have learned to forgive not just the big things, but the small daily disappointments that can accumulate and create distance. They understand that forgiveness is not a one-time event, but a continuous choice to choose love over being right, connection over protection, growth over comfort. But here's what's really fascinating about forgiveness in relationships. It's contagious. When you develop the capacity to forgive quickly and completely, you create a field of grace around you. People feel safe to be themselves in your presence because they know your love isn't conditional on their perfection. They feel free to grow because they know your acceptance isn't dependent on their performance. As we draw our time together to a close, I want to share with you what I believe is the ultimate secret of forgiveness. It's not something you achieve, it's something you practice. Like meditation, like love, like any spiritual discipline, forgiveness is a moment-by-moment choice to align yourself with peace rather than pain, with freedom rather than fear, with love rather than resentment. The power of forgiveness lies not just in what it releases, but in what it creates. When you forgive, you're not just letting go of the past, you're opening yourself to a new future. You're not just healing old wounds, you're creating space for new possibilities. You're not just making peace with what was, you're making way for what could be. Think about the legacy you want to leave in this world. Do you want to be remembered as someone who held on to hurt, who kept score, who built walls? Or do you want to be remembered as someone who chose love again and again, who had the courage to remain open even after being hurt, who showed others that freedom is possible? The practice of forgiveness has taught me something profound about the nature of healing. It doesn't always happen in the way we expect. But sometimes the very situation that broke your heart ends up being the one that opens it wider than ever before. Sometimes the person who hurt you the most becomes your greatest teacher in love and compassion. Sometimes your deepest wounds become your most powerful gifts to the world. Consider this: every time you choose forgiveness, you're not just changing your own life, you're changing the world. You're breaking the cycle of pain and retaliation that has kept humanity trapped for millennia. You're showing others that there's another way. You're proving that love is stronger than fear, that peace is more powerful than anger, that freedom is possible even in the face of profound hurt. The most beautiful thing about forgiveness is that it's always available to you. No matter how long you've held on to hurt, no matter how justified your anger might be, no matter how deep the wound, you can choose forgiveness in any moment. You can choose peace right now. You can choose freedom today. But here's what's really extraordinary about the journey of forgiveness. It's not just about releasing the past, it's about reclaiming your power in the present. Every act of forgiveness is an act of self-love. Every moment of letting go is a moment of coming home to yourself. Every choice to release resentment is a choice to trust in the abundance of life. Think about the energy you'll reclaim when you finally lay down the burden of unforgiveness. Think about the possibilities that will open up when you stop filtering life through the lens of past hurt. Think about the relationships that could heal, the dreams that could manifest, the joy that could flow when you finally choose freedom over being right. The practice of forgiveness also teaches us something profound about the nature of time. The past is not fixed. It's constantly being reinterpreted through the lens of the present. When you forgive, you're not changing what happened, but you are changing what it means. You're not erasing the event, but you are transforming its impact on your life. Let me share one final truth about forgiveness. It's not the end of the journey. It's the beginning. When you forgive, you're not closing a chapter. You're opening yourself to a whole new book of possibilities. You're not finishing something. You're starting something. You're not just healing the past, you're creating the future. The choice to forgive is always available to you. Right here, right now, you can choose to see things differently. You can choose to release the weight of past hurts. You can choose to trust in the healing power of love. You can choose to be free. Remember, forgiveness doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. It doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you strong. It doesn't make you a doormat. It makes you a door through which others can find their way to healing. Your capacity to forgive is not a liability. It's your greatest asset. As you leave here today, I want you to consider this. What would your life look like if you weren't carrying the weight of unforgiveness? What would be possible if you weren't filtered every experience through the lens of past hurt? What could you create if you weren't using so much energy maintaining walls of protection? The journey of forgiveness is the journey of coming home to yourself. It's the journey of remembering who you really are beneath all the hurt, all the protection, all the fear. It's the journey of reclaiming your birthright of joy, peace, and unlimited. You don't have to wait for someone else to change to experience this freedom. You don't need anyone's permission to choose peace. You don't need to understand everything to let go of what's hurting you. All you need is the willingness to see things differently, the courage to choose love over fear, and the commitment to practice forgiveness, not just as an action, but as a way of being in the world. The time for freedom is now. The place for healing is here. The person who can choose forgiveness is you. Your heart knows the way. All you have to do is follow it. Your soul knows the truth. All you have to do is listen to it. Your spirit knows the path. All you have to do is trust it. Take this moment right now to make a new choice. Choose to see yourself not as a victim of what happened to you, but as the author of what happens next. Choose to view your past not as a prison that defines you, but as a school that refined you. Choose to hold your hurts not as wounds that limit you, but as wisdom that guides you. The magic of forgiveness is waiting for you. The freedom you seek is already within you. The peace you desire is just one choice away. Make that choice today, make it tomorrow, make it again and again until it becomes who you are, not just what you do. Remember, in the end, forgiveness isn't about changing the past. It's about transforming the future. It's not about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing what happens next. It's not about denying your pain. It's about declaring your freedom. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Let that step be forgiveness. Let that step be now. Let that step be you choosing love over fear, freedom over resentment, peace over pain. Because when you do, you'll discover that the magic of forgiveness isn't just in what it releases, it's in what it creates, it's in who you become. It's in the life that becomes possible when you finally set yourself free